Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. Welcome to A Place of Burning. It's our first one-shot session, our first one-shot live stream here on Twitch. If you've watched our stuff before, it might work a little different to how it usually does, but that's just as it is. Regular viewers will know that the first thing I usually do is introduce our stream manager, and we had planned to have Chris as our stream manager, but he's having a lot of computer issues right now, so we're sort of sharing stream manager duties around. I might introduce Chris later if he's back on and everything's functional, but hey, these things happen. So bit of blurb first, get that out of the way. There's loads of links down below. There's links to our social media, which is usually Telling Tales RP. There's links to our YouTube, where all our VODs are stored. If you want to watch this again in future or watch any of our ongoing series, then you can get yourself over there and do that. We also have a link to our Patreon if you feel like supporting us. It's more than welcome. Speaking of our YouTube and ongoing series, we also run 2 regular weekly series, or both live role-playing like this. We have Simbaroom, which happens on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock GMT, and we have Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition, which happens on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock GMT. Why I said that in that order, I don't know, because Tuesday comes before Wednesday. Everyone knows that. Yeah. So this is our first one-shot. We're going to be playing Alien, which is a role-playing system based on a very popular movie franchise, and it is created by Free League, who make excellent stuff in general. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the setting a bit, I'm going to go through the system a bit, make sure everyone's in for the long haul here. But first off, I'm going to be introducing our players for today, because there's a few of them, and why not meet them? Why not meet them first? Why not meet them first? So let's bring on Steve first. And Steve is usually our stream manager on Vampire the Masquerade on Tuesdays, but he's here now playing like a real boy. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, yeah.
Good. Excellent. And then speaking of our Vampire stream, the next 3 people are players on Vampire. So it's almost as if I planned it that way. I haven't at all. We have Justin. Hello, Justin.
Hello.
Hi. How's it going?
Yeah, it's all right. It's supposed to
right.
be snowing, but it isn't. It's raining.
Well, rain's
England,
more alien-like, isn't it, than snow?
It is.
So that's that makes sense. But we've also got Pierre. Hello, Pierre.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. Not like.
Are you excited to be having awful stuff happening to characters?
Wait. Awful stuff.
It's a routine inspection, mate.
I thought we were all just.
I thought we were going to play Tales of Equestria. So let's bring on John. John, also from said Vampire stream. How's it going?
Hello. It's going all right. My mic isn't. I'm good.
Okay. I thought you were complaining that your mic wasn't working as I saw the mute button go in and out.
No, it was in the wrong place, and I was aware that people probably don't want to listen to me just breathe heavily into the microphone for however long we're going to be here. But if they do...
We're just here to entertain, we're not here to judge. So, our final player is a newbie. We've done various channel stuff with him before, but not on Telling Tales. But new to Telling Tales, it's Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Hi. Are you excited for your first Telling Tales experience?
I'm so excited. I brought my pulse rifle. So
yes.
Wow. And I
don't need it.
I got the merch out. That's how excited I am.
You did. There we go. And indeed, behind Steve, we can see the actual Alien role-playing game. We've got all the props. So there's quite a bit to explain before we get started in anger, as it were. So first off, let's talk about what a one-shot is, what you're watching here, how we're going to structure things. So a one-shot, in role-playing terms, is a single-session story. If you're watching us today, you can watch the whole story, beginning to end. That's it. The Alien system in particular kind of specializes in this with a mode called cinematic play, which we'll be using, and I'll go a little bit into that later, but I don't want to, get all heavy-handed with things. How long will this stream last? Well, my answer to that is between 3 and 5 hours. That all depends on the players, how they do things, how I decide to do things in the spur of the moment. But, it's all fine. If I had to guess, I'd say 4 to 4.5 hours. That's how long you're with us, and you have to be. Remember, you've started now, so you're not allowed to click off. We'll be having breaks. There's a 3-act structure, and between like Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 2 and Act 3, we will have a break. So we'll have a little 10-minute break there, and people can go do other stuff and do what they want and grab a drink and a snack and a bio and all that kind of stuff. So now that we know what we're doing with this story, A Place of Burning, let's have just a little talk about the system for people out there who might not be too sure how this role-playing system works. And we'll just have a very, very quick explanation of the very basics of the system. So Alien is a system where you roll a whole bunch of D6 anytime you're doing a skill check. You have 4 different attributes on your character sheet and a number of different skills. And it's as simple as adding the skill to the relevant attribute, rolling that many D6, and if you roll a 6, then you've succeeded. The dice look a little bit funkier than your normal dice, although you can just use D6. John, you want to bang an image of the alien dice on screen for us?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
One moment. Yeah.
I can show you.
Yeah?
Oh no!
Lovely. Yeah.
There we go. That's what the alien dice look like. So the black ones there are base dice. That's your skill and attribute dice. But then there's another little mechanic in Alien called stress. As your character gets more stressed and more terrified by the horrified things happening around them, horrifying, I should say, not horrified things, then they add stress. Their stress level goes up. They add stress dice to their pool. That makes them more powerful because they've got more dice. But also, they run the risk of rolling a 1 on those stress dice, which, as you can see from that image, there's a little face on the symbol. That is bad. That means you make a panic roll, and that means you may lose control of your character. Crazy things could happen. So yeah, and that's basically the Alien system in a nutshell. There's a few bits and pieces more than that, but no one needs to know that before we start. Well, I and the players do, but we do. So it's all good. It's all under control. What we'll also be doing, as I say, is doing cinematic play. It has that 3-act structure I explained. It has some stuff called personal agendas and story points, but you guys don't need to worry about that. We'll bring them up when they happen, and we'll cover them then. What we're also doing is, with a little kind of homebrew or rules change, I guess, to this, is I have a big cast list of all the people who are in this story. And basically, I'd like to say if players die, but what I mean is when players die, because this game is brutal, and so am I, they can just switch to other characters in the cast. So what you may see is that although our players have characters listed for themselves now, that might change as the game goes on and their characters might change. But it's all part of the fun. So yeah, that's about it, I think. What I'll do now is I'll just very briefly go through the setting that the game is taking part in, and then we'll have some intros for the characters, and then we're more or less good to get going. And I am aware this is taking longer than a normal stream, but we're here for a few hours, guys. You know, this is just like the epilogue of Return of the King, right? But bolted onto the beginning.
Or the intro for Star Wars.
Or the intro for Star Wars. Like it's going to take a long time, so we're going to take a bit of time to set it up. So without any further ado, I'll talk about the setting we're taking part in, and it's a bit of a blurb to read, but you know, I've got a great voice. If I didn't have you, wouldn't be watching this, obviously. So it's all going to be fine. So our story takes place in the year 2180. Which is shortly after the events of the I was going to say the original Alien trilogy, but what I of course mean is the only Alien films, the original Alien trilogy. And yeah, it takes place on a world called Gehenna. Let's talk about Gehenna. So, to the uneducated, that the toxic and hostile world of Revelation Blue has been colonized at all seems a baffling error. That it has been colonized twice over could only appear to be masochism. But the planet holds much in the way of useful resources and even more scientific secrets to be unraveled. During 70 years of study from colonies affiliated with both the United Americas and the Union of Progressive Peoples, much of Gehenna's flora and fauna remains obscure, and the planet's surface beyond the colonies of Bering and Azul is mostly a death sentence without survival suits. Mainly self-sufficient, the two colonies have so far eluded much in the way of corporate interference. The focus of company interests in the system are the more lucrative but far smaller mining colony on Revelation Red and the soon-to-be decommissioned medical space station UASS Mercy. For the last 60 years, the Cold War between the two Earth governments has escalated into open warfare between Bering and Azul. This conflict has been bitter, vicious, and long. And even today, 5 years into the latest ceasefire, violence still breaks out on a regular basis between patrols and cells of veterans unwilling to let the past go. It is not a place anyone visits willingly, and the natives disdain outsiders for their weakness and ignorance. To those who call it their home, Revelation Blue is a remnant of colonial intent lost in decades of bloodshed and struggle. They have given it a different name, one more befitting a place of sacrifice and loss, a purgatory, a burning grave, Gehenna. That's where we are. Sounds great, right? Okay. Sounds like a lot of fun. Further to that, we have home. No place like home. Absolutely. And hey, I come from the UK's equivalent of Gehenna, so I can identify with that. Where are we on Gehenna? Well, our story takes place very specifically in a specific location on Gehenna called Chirikov Station. Let's have a quick word about that, and then we're done with all the setting stuff, right? We can move on. Over the decades, Chirikov has been used for many things. A trade post, a safety fallback for survivalists and pioneers, a barracks, a tooling factory, and now, in what are surely the final years before total obsolescence, a rough working space for scientific inquiry and local material processing. Rovers and drones bring mineral and flora samples back in. They are made safe, supposedly, studied, and then the creaking machinery on the old factory floor extracts whatever worth they hold and is loaded onto automated transports back to Bering. There are many reasons one could be assigned to Chirikov for a season: punishment, hazing, personal vendetta, but none of them are good. Even for Gehenna, life here is miserable and dangerous. 2 standard months are left before a replacement crew arrives. 2 more months of Chirikov. And yeah, John has just asked, shall we have the... Yeah, let's see Chirikov, shall we? That's Chirikov. Inviting. Wow. Very pretty.
Nothing like watching the sunrise.
Nothing like watching a pink, toxic sunrise. Yeah, absolutely. So, we are on Gehenna, also known as Revelation Blue. We are broadly part of the colony of Bering, and we are at Chirikov Station, a backwater pseudo-punishment locale where horrible, dirty work is done by mostly horrible, dirty people. And that's where we are at the beginning. Let's talk about our different characters. And then we'll be just about good to go. So I'm basically going to go around the crew we have here, and I'm going to ask them individually to just give a really quick overview of the character, like who their character is, what they do at Chirikov, and maybe a little bit, you know what, we won't talk about what they look like. We'll talk about that the first time they're in a scene in the story. So let's start with Steve, who's playing Dima Lebedev. Steve, tell us about Dima.
Yes, so I'm Dima. I'm the lead scientist at Chirikov Station. That's basically it, really.
That's pretty much
it. That'll do.
Yeah, definitely not shady going on there.
Literally, I think that light touch is absolutely fine. You can talk a bit about other stuff if you want, but if that's what suits you, that is absolutely fine. We'll find out more, right?
A very private person.
Very private person. He is kind of a private person. Both Steve and Dima. So
yeah, this is what the role playing all the session is going to be like, just tight-lipped.
Yeah.
There's an alien.
So, Justin, why don't you tell us about Zinovia Kuznetsova?
Well, Zinovia, she's an officer. She's in charge of one of the crews here on Chirikov. She's totally legit on the level, definitely, and is just trying to get through this inspection that's going on, just without any big kerfuffles. Zinovia and Dima are good friends, and Zinovia would say of Dima, if Dima obviously doesn't like talking about themselves very much, that Dima is a really reliable, intelligent, excellent officer to be in charge of the scientific team here on Chirikov. Although a little odd, and but we're all a little off here on Gehenna. So
sure. So yeah, if you want the technical term, the team Zinovia is in charge of is the machinery crew, the factory crew, the people who are doing the manual processing here. So then we'll go to Pierre, and Pierre is Pierre's character has had an interesting last week or so. So Pierre, why don't you tell us about Shan Jian?
Yeah, Jian, I'm a man of few words. I keep to myself. I like it when everyone else does the same. Sometimes people don't leave me alone. Usually I let it slide off my back like water off a duck's back, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes they push it too far. Sometimes they learn where that gets you.
Where did that get you, Gian?
And very specifically, that got someone called Diego into cold storage about a week ago.
Yeah, well, what can I say? He was talking a lot.
So Gian is currently in the brig, and technically works under Xenophia, but circumstances have changed. So there we go. Now, Xenophia mentioned an inspection. Let's talk about that inspection and a couple of the people who are here to bring that about. So first off, John, why don't you tell us about Howang 12?
Howang is, or appears to be, a slight woman, quite friendly and approachable. She is a company agent here to inspect the facility, and she's very good at inspecting stuff because it is literally what she was built for.
Yeah. There we go. So if anyone unfamiliar with the franchise or not able to detect John's subtle hints there, Howang is a synthetic or android, but appears in every way to be human. And it's worth noting that does not advertise her synthetic nature, but neither conceals it. So just in case anyone was thinking, we don't have an Ash situation here, I mean, we might have something with Ash situation later, who knows? But yeah. So finally, Alex, why don't you tell us about Borya Makarov and what brings him to Chirikov?
Yeah, so Borya is a veteran of the Space Operating Forces, so sort of analogous to like a Colonial Marine serviceman that you might sort of recognize from the franchise. And basically, for about a year, it's been his job to protect Howang 12 because they're a valuable company asset. And so I've got this job. I don't love it. Don't love my posting, but just hoping to get out of here.
And in that, Borya already has something in common with everyone else in Chirikov. So there we go. That's our characters. There's a whole, obviously, cast list of NPCs, but we're not going to go through them on screen. It'd take up too much time. But you'll get to meet them as we go on. And also, if you want to have a quick read of the setting for this and a full cast list, or at least a full starting cast list, and get to know all those NPCs and stuff, we have a document for you. And Steve will post it into chat right about now. It's over on Dropbox. Go in there. It's a PDF. Check it out. Read it if you want. I guess the only thing to know about it, everyone who is currently being played by a player is highlighted in red. Otherwise, it's pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, hopefully that'll be good. So without any further ado, that's quite enough preamble. We've been going for about 20 minutes already. So let's get going with the actual roleplay, with A Place of Burning. So let's... Justin's good point. If on the off chance you tuned into an Alien RPG and thought this will be a very bit of light entertainment, it won't. We'll get quite kind of adult and mature and violent. Nothing horrible. Well, unless you really find violence horrible, which you probably should, but there we go. Yeah, but this is 18 plus material. Just so you know. Yeah. So yeah, particularly because of Pierre.
God, Pierre.
Without any further ado, we're just going to go around. So we're on Chirikov at Chirikov Station. The morning has just begun at Chirikov. The gears and pistons of the factory floor, the huge factory floor, are starting to wind up. And it does take a while to wind up at Chirikov. A low rumble escalates into a whining drone, into huge crashing thuds that echo throughout the entire outpost. And obviously, if you're on that machinery crew, you're in the middle of it as you're trying to work these horrible, outdated, huge bits of heavy machinery. And if you're in the rest of the station, you have this constant background cacophony of noise as the obsolete machinery of Chirikov does its work. With that in mind, where is everyone liable to be? Let's just go around one by one and just set the scene a little bit with you all. Might as well do it in the same order we did before. So, Steve, where's Dima right now? What's he up to?
So if morning's just kicking off, I think Dima would probably be. You'd see him leaving the station with a sort of tracksuit style clothes and a breather, and he would be going outside to do his morning exercise, doing running, that sort of stuff, and then he'd come back and take a shower and crack on with the day.
And worth noting that Dima is the only person who steps foot outside Chirikov. The air is mildly toxic, although not as much this close to the station as it would be in the far wilderness. It is a dangerous planet, but for whatever reason, Dima seems to feel perfectly confident in taking his morning exercises outside the station, something which is certainly looked on unusually by the rest of the crew. The rest of the crew, like Xenofia. What's Xenofia doing, Justin?
I think Xenofia, she is probably, just doing her rounds on the machinery floor, checking over lists of documents, making sure things are as in order as they can be, and probably has a furrowed brow, maybe even looking like they've got a headache or a hangover, perhaps, something really slowing down the rate of reading as they're poring over these technical sheets.
Absolutely. Sounds good. And that is, do you think Xenofia's on the factory floor, or will she be in her office?
Probably going, maybe got a clipboard with a few documents going around the floor, checking things off.
Checking on everyone.
Sure everything's
because,
exactly
of course,
should be.
you are down one crewman.
Well, it wasn't a good crew.
It was two crewmen.
I was gonna say.
Well, one of them was good, but
yeah. Speaking of being down two crewmen, the reason for that is in what passes for a brig in Chirikov, which is essentially a sealed blast chamber back in one of the old disused parts of the outpost. So Yang is in there, and what do you think Yan is up to as morning breaks, Pierre?
I am pacing up and down. I am thinking about various important things, like what matters to me. I'm occasionally thinking about being back in my bunk, just left alone, pop in a couple of drinks. But thinking quite hard about some decisions I need to make.
One might even say planning. Yeah.
One could say that.
And while you're doing that, I think it's quite likely that Chang, the marshal from Bering, who's come to take you back when the automated transports leave in a couple of weeks' time, is perhaps sat outside, maybe occasionally looking in through the plastic panel at the interior of the blast chamber, making sure, that you haven't somehow got out from that relatively small, completely concrete chamber.
Yep.
Okay. And with that in mind, people who came to Chirikov alongside Chang, the colonial marshal, one of them is Huang. What is Huang doing, John?
I am standing on the factory floor observing the startup procedure because it does take a strangely long time. It's very, very old. I'm trying to gather average readings of the approximate startup time throughout the week, and also observing what each of the crew are doing at their stations.
Absolutely.
So I'm basically just wandering around staring at things and people.
great.
Absolutely. Sounds good. And presumably alongside you, though, who knows? It's kind of up to him. Alex, what is Boria doing?
Boria is absolutely alongside Huang 12 at this point, on the basis that just got here, unfamiliar setting, don't know how safe it is, especially in the context of a recent death, which was certainly not of natural causes. So despite that person being in the brig and knowing this, I think there are just a few unknowns. So I think Boya is probably a little more alert and on edge than he might otherwise have been.
Absolutely. This was meant to be an easy job, right? And now you've got a murderer hanging around.
Yeah. It's like, God, there's not that many people here. So for there to have been a murder is pretty severe.
Nobody's tried
Absolutely.
me.
No, but they did watch you beat Diego to death with a wrench, so, you know, everything's subjective, right?
Sticks and stones.
I
got a lawyer.
should put a bullet inside Jiang when I got the chance.
Maybe you should have. I'm sure we'll find out. So let's pop back to Dima. Okay, let's say so. Dima, you've done your run. Probably a circuit of the station is enough for a morning's exercise. Honestly, you know, it's a large facility, even if there's only 11 standard crew here. And as you come round to one side of the station, and you know what, let's have a floor plan of the station up, just so we know kind of the scale of it and what we're talking about here. And I'm sure John will help us with that.
Yes.
As I say, a lot of this admin stuff we're scampering a bit because we were meant to have someone controlling all of it, but unfortunately he's had computer issues. So there we go. That is the floor plan of Chirikov Station. Where the bulk of everything happens is in that bit just off center to the right there. Processing. That's the factory floor. Beyond that, to the right, is a hangar. And then just to the left of that is a combination of storage, offices, and the laboratories. Just to the left of that is the old outpost, which is now mostly disused. That's where Jian is being held in the brig, and that's where the power generator is for the station as well. And just to the left of that, the very smallest part of the station, habitation, where your crowded and unpleasant quarters are. There's a pipeline running off the top, which is part of the fuel that runs through the station, powers it, but also you process it. It goes on to burying. So, Dima, let's say you're right over at the right hand of that, and you basically have come out for whatever reason. It is the easiest way to come out through the hangar doors, and you've done a circuit of the station. You're there, back again at the hangar doors. As you are kind of making your way further back in to the station, you see that there is the doors, I suppose, the access point to the Lorshad, which is an aerial vehicle. The only pilotable vehicle within Chirikov is open. And as you go past it, you hear a voice call out to you, the voice of Guang, the station pilot, who ducks her head out of the entrance to the Lorshad and says, Dima, you might want to come look at this?
Okay, well, I'll wander over, taking my breather off and stowing it.
Guang is sat at the front of the cockpit of the Lorshad. She's kind of quite a short, athletic build, and has kind of close-cropped, spiky hair and a pair of almost permanently on kind of pilot shades. She's tapping at the sensor readings in the cockpit, the only sensors you really have in Chirikov. There's no station radar or anything like that. And she just taps at it. Motion.
Okay, well, I'll wander over and take a look.
Sure. And you know what? I feel this gives us an opportunity to demonstrate a role, doesn't it? So why don't you give me a Comtech role? Because I think that's what's appropriate here. So what Steve is going to do with that means that he has a skill called Comtech and an attribute it's associated with called Wits. He's going to get to combine those two, get that many D6, and just give us a roll. And no one has any stress yet, right? So, yeah, maybe you won't ever get stressed. I don't know. What
I know that motion's pretty stressful.
Yeah.
So yes, my base attribute is 5, Comtech is 2, so I'm rolling 7 dice currently. And I don't roll any successes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, you don't know how to interpret the Lorshad sensors.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a
You're a
pilot.
scientist, man.
I'm not a pilot. Well,
are you asking Guang, or are
yes.
you just letting her? Yeah.
what's
Guang
up?
looks kind of mildly surprised at this and says, "Oh, well, yes. I suppose you're not military, right? We've got motion coming into the northeast.
How far?
About 2 kilometers out. None of the... I mean, you know yourself, you're an expert on the flora and fauna of Gehenna. none of the natural wildlife of Gehenna is big enough to trip sensors like these. Like the largest things on Gehenna that are native are like kind of insect analogs. So that's not it.
We're not expecting anyone, are we? There's no one else due.
She shrugs and says, "You know better than me, but 2 weeks till an automated transport, and it's the wrong direction for that anyway."
Huh, that's weird. I don't. There's no radio contact, I suppose.
She tilts her head slightly and says, "Do you want me to check?"
It's probably worth a shout.
Okay. She leans over, punches a few buttons, pulls up kind of something that looks, like a modern CB radio device, holds it and says, "This is Chirikov Station. Bogey's approaching to the northeast. Can you hear me?" Just static. She shrugs and puts it back on. Do we need to talk to Yeva and Zinofia?
I think that would be a good call. Certainly, yes.
Okay, well, why don't you get them and bring them back here, sir, and I'll keep an eye on this.
Sure. Yeah. Do that. That's good.
Okay.
I'll head off and
Sure.
rouse people.
So as you head away from the hangar, you go through the factory floor, and you can see the machinery crew, or what remains of this machinery crew. There's only 3 individuals working now, which means everything's taking a lot longer to process, which in turn means it's taking a lot longer to get to your laboratory. And there you can see ahead of you a group of 3 individuals. You can see Zinofia, you can see Huang, and you can see Boya, all there kind of stood near each other as the work is being carried out. And this seems an ideal point to maybe describe our characters a bit. So why don't we start with Dima? What does Dima look like?
So Dima is about 43 years old, keeping in reasonable shape, exercising daily, and quite neatly dressed, and make sure his beard is neatly trimmed. So pretty clean cut.
Clean cut kind of a guy. So Zinofia, what do you look like?
Well, Zinofia, she is a tall, kind of strong-looking woman with kind of a blonde hair, kind of pulled back in a high ponytail, and then she's an officer. She dresses like an officer in officer of gear, and I think I've already described that her mood right now appears to be quite pensive.
Sure. Huang, you gave us a bit of a insight into what you looked like earlier, but why don't you just reiterate a little bit for us?
Huang appears to be a Vietnamese woman in her about 30 area, with a very severe short black bob and a tan company suit.
Great. And Boya?
Boya's, I would say, in his late 30s. Given his 15-year career. He's of average size. He's got like an athletic build, buzz cut, stubble, and since he's not actually an active duty Colonial Marine anymore, and has sort of fallen into bodyguard work, he's wearing like a functional suit, basically.
Yeah, not like nice, but not more
businessman.
Your priority isn't that it looks fancy. Your priority is that you can reach into it really fast.
You can move.
Right?
You can move well in it. Is the idea? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he has sort of grey eyes. So
absolutely. Great. So, Dima, take it off my hands.
Right. Well, I'll walk towards the group and gesture. Well, sort of try to catch Zenovia's attention. And just sort of beckon over, kind of a quick word.
I would eventually catch Dima's kind of like building, kind of like signals trying to get me to come over and join them. Is there like a gantry that overlooks the factory, the floor or something? Yeah, and join Dima there, where it's unlikely that we can be overheard.
Yeah, the pilot just showed me something interesting. We apparently have inbound. Something is inbound to the station.
Something's inbound to the station.
Yes, it's been picked up on motion trackers in the
The
ship.
pilot been drinking.
Not to my knowledge. They tried calling us over the radio, but no reply, no response.
Well, I suppose it could be a ship. Actually, let's talk to the team about this. Huang and Boria. Yeah, let's see if we can. Maybe they'll have some insight into this.
Sure.
Who knows? It could be a ship from Azul or Bering. Something
I guess
like
they might
that.
have more knowledge of schedules than we do. But yeah.
Yeah, or if it's something that's could be a military matter, then maybe they'll have more to know. Boria looks like he knows what he's doing, right?
Technically speaking, I'm not saying you have to by any stretch of the imagination, but technically speaking, the two of you are in charge of the station alongside Yeva Tarasova, who is the Chirikov medic. That doesn't mean you have to tell her and get her on board for what's going on, but just so you know, that would be protocol.
Is Yeva on the floor at the moment, or
she is probably in her office?
Then what I'll do is having told Zinovia, I'll go off and find Yeva, I think, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is the intent for you? Are you bringing Yeva here, or are you gathering together somewhere else?
Do you want to step off and tell Yeva, and I'll step off and tell Huang and Boria?
Sure. Should we meet somewhere quieter, or should I bring Yeva back here?
I mean, but back at the Lawshoot would probably be a good idea.
Yes, I'll bring her back.
Sure. Zinovia, you are almost right there. You just have to go down the gantry, and then all you have to do is get the attention of Huang and Boria over the sound of the crashing machinery, which has now reached its kind of full crescendo. Ahead of you, you can see a couple of your machinery crew. You can see FM kind of working away at the processing, desperately trying to make sure. It looks like one of the machines is struggling slightly, trying to make sure it doesn't fall apart entirely, kind of performing the daily maintenance he has to, taking a moment every now and then to kind of worriedly work at a large wooden cross around his neck as he does so.
Huang, I need your thoughts on something.
Of course.
Getting your attention from across the room. And are you coming towards me, or do I have to come towards you?
I think if you are attempting to communicate, you have to be right next to each other in this huge factory chamber.
I'm happy to shout over the factory chamber, but are you
no,
moving?
you could, no. I'm saying it's it's so loud you can't.
That's
you
fair
have
enough.
to shout next to someone.
Well, then I shout next to you and point you towards the door that leads out towards the vehicle.
I finish whatever I'm recording on my PDAT and follow you.
Okay. So you go off kind of to the side to a more private kind of chamber, probably one of the disused offices. Is Boya coming along? I'm assuming he is.
He's absolutely in close tow. Yeah. Would it be appropriate to make say an observation roll at this point if I wanted to, because I obviously don't know this person very well, so I just want to sort of
get a sense of how.
Yeah, or maybe just like they didn't look like they've got any anything on them, or
Sure.
just
yeah,
general.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead. Give us an observation roll, and we'll see how that works out.
You're giving them an optical pat down.
Should be noted that to detect subterfuge, you need to manipulation matches manipulation. So.
Okay, right. Well, I didn't roll any successes, unfortunately, so I don't know. Couldn't pick anything up. So they seem fine.
It's very loud.
They seem nice.
They seem nice. Nice, trustworthy, friendly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. So you're in this side chamber, this disused office. Go ahead.
Is something that matters enough you?
Yeah, no, Dima had something important news. I don't want to misstate it, so I thought I will meet. Dima wanted to meet by the vehicle. Some kind of object's been detected. I'm not entirely sure, but I really think that you two will have probably some valuable input onto what this is. The last thing we want to do is have any kind of security threat while your inspection is going on. So your input, I think, would be essential, really. Unfortunately, so yeah.
I exchange a look with Boria and say, well, I suppose I can delay my morning observations for another day.
It's really unfortunate.
Lead the way.
And I'll take over to the vehicle. I will best let Dima explain it himself. I don't want to misstate any of the crucial details. Matt, you're muted.
You're muted.
Matt, yeah.
You're still muted, Mother.
I know. My Windows decided to start flashing things at me because I hit the wrong key. Which is Windows' fault, not mine. So the three of you start heading over towards the hangar. Meanwhile, Dima, you're up in the offices, and you find your way to the medical offices. Yeva is sat in her typical chair, legs up on the table, snoring slightly. She's kind of a woman in her early 50s who seems to be was very quite powerfully built, but is now kind of starting to go to seed, with grey hair pinned up and still always dresses in her kind of military medical fatigues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll put my head around the door, see that she's asleep or resting, and rap on the door quite loudly. So I'm not going in. I'm just sort of, sticking my head around the door and trying to be vaguely polite.
Sure. She kind of jerks to alertness and says, "Bear's teeth, Dima. What do you want?"
Yeah, sorry to disturb you. There's something you might want to have a look at down at the ship. Our pilot has detected some incoming motion, and it isn't responding to radio calls. So,
as you started to explain that, her hand had shot out towards her kind of medical pack, and as you finish it, she slows down, obviously not as panicked by your initial thing of there's something you need to look at, but slowly still grabs it and kind of hauls it over one shoulder and stands up, and walks over to you and says, "All right, let's go take a look." Looking a bit kind of puzzled, not at you saying this, but at the prospect of what's happening. And the two of you head out towards the factory floor and along to the hangar. As you do so, over the crashing sound of the factory, she leans in and yells, "Are you still taking your exercises outside?"
Yes, yeah.
You don't need me to tell you shouldn't be doing that, Dima. We should schedule a full ear, nose, and throat inspection for you.
If you wish, but I'm well acquainted with the risks of the station locale. I always ensure that I have my breather. I've been fine so far. 10 months.
Yes, well, your survival bias aside, risks are still risks. I'll put something in the schedule.
If you wish, sure.
You carry on your walk, head through the hangar. Let's say you all arrive at roughly the same time, because that's convenient. Guang is kind of half hanging out of the entrance of the air vehicle, and as she sees the large group of you approach, she kind of shakes her head and says, "Whatever it is, it's closer."
How close?
About another third of a kilometer in. It's heading directly for us.
How far away is it now?
1.6.
Okay. Slow for a vehicle.
Uh-huh. You want to take a look at it, soldier? See if you can figure out something I can't?
I'll have a look.
You go in and you can take a look. Another Comtech roll, please.
Comtech, I am not terrible at.
That's encouraging.
Oh, I rolled it on the floor. I'll just get another one.
Hey, first floor roll of the...
Yeah, it was always going to be me. No successes again. I'm not having much luck.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
part of
suppose,
the
yeah.
reason that you and Dima may have struggled with this is that this law shad is at least 30 years out of date.
Right.
It's archaic stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. In frustration, I'll just say this thing's junk.
Perhaps, Huang, I assume you're good with machines.
Is that right? Is that?
Are we good just going to interpret that as a general silence before someone picks up the thread within that? Yeva rolls her eyes slightly and says, well, if it's too slow to be a vehicle, there's an obvious conclusion, isn't there?
Someone's on foot or a group of people? I don't know.
And if someone's on foot, shouldn't we suit up?
Yeah. Do you ever get people on foot? There's nothing for... This doesn't make any sense.
No, we don't tend to get people on foot out here at Chirikov. We are hundreds of miles into the wilderness here.
The only thing I can think of, and it's not good, is someone's dropped a group of people off out of range, and now they're proceeding on in foot in the hopes maybe they don't get spotted. That's not a good thought. We should definitely suit up.
Guang says, and arm up. Yeva shrugs and says, look, if you want to entertain your little colonial brushfire war fantasies about this, but we're 2 years into a ceasefire now, do you really think Azul is going to drop outside Chirikov to try and uncover the treasures it contains? These are probably people who need our help.
Boyer is going to visibly bristle and straighten up at the brushfire war comment.
It certainly was more directed at Guang, but it absolutely, yes. Yeva shrugs and says, look, we have 3 ape suits here for going out long range. And one of them is key locked to someone who right now is in a blast chamber. So that's going to be an entertaining conversation to try and get him to give us access to his ape suit. Otherwise, I have one, Guang has one. That's 2 of us. If we want another 3rd person out there for protection against the swarming hordes of Asuli special forces, then someone's going to have to go talk to Jian.
Why is there not a key override in the event that one of the workers is indisposed and their suit is needed?
Because Jian's ape suit is his. Mine is mine. Guang's is Guang. We have 0 assigned ape suits here at Chirikov.
Great. No expense
see.
spared. So, just alternatives. What if we don't need to leave? What have you got in terms of how many entrances are there? Access points? How can you lock this place down at all?
We can absolutely lock the place down. We have these hangar doors. We have the automated transport entrance, which is closed unless the automated transport opens it digitally. And we have a sealed entrance to the outpost at the back. So to answer your question in real terms, the hangar doors are the only doors.
Okay.
That, however, doesn't dissuade me from the fact that these are probably individuals on foot who need our help.
Perhaps one of us should take the ship out and have a look.
Guang says, well, I mean, this ship isn't certified to cruise in any realistic fashion. Like, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to realistically see properly whatever is on the ground. Not to mention that further than a kilometer out here is almost complete canopy cover.
Shrugs.
So what's visibility like just generally outside? How far can you see?
You can see if you're within the forests of Gehenna, it's terrible. They're forests, right, but they're more like rainforest, essentially, in terms of visibility. In the open, pretty decent, unless there's some kind of horrific toxic mist or kind of poison fog happening. But that doesn't happen near Chirikov, mostly.
Are there any vantage points at the station where we can sort of climb up and look out?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so Boyer was basically about to ask, do you have any, like, I don't know, some kind of weather station or periscope or anything like that?
No.
Yeva says, if you're talking about a way to get a better look at the things out there, there are two ways. There is this. She points at the sensors within the vehicle, which is the only sensor equipment in Chirikov, or there is the highly delicate and advanced sensors we all have in our skulls.
Well, I don't know about advanced. We'll see. Okay, I don't love the idea of going outside. That's my position. I don't like it.
I mean, I'm happy to go outside. If nobody else wants to, I'll take a look. I don't believe they'll be hostile.
But I
don't have a suit.
So what was that, Boyer?
What's your take on this?
If these are potentially non-hostile humans, then we consider it an obligation to offer aid if needed.
That's a good
Particularly
point.
as on this side of the planet, it may be more likely that they are from Bering rather than Azul. I find it unlikely that Azul military would have dropped a platoon of soldiers to try and take this. It's entirely, I'd probably rate it's more likely it's a group of civilians that got lost.
If you want to go out there, I will back you. But also, is that any less likely than someone traipsing hundreds of kilometers on foot, lost and still being alive and moving out there?
It's possible they came part of the way with the transport, and then something happened to the transport.
Dima said... Sorry.
No,
you go. Dima said that he'd be willing to go. It's walking. You can get there on foot, right, Dima?
Sure,
Would any of you be willing to assist in Dima's work?
Yeva says, look, we only need... Maybe I have misspoken myself. I'm going in my ape suit. Guang is likely going to go in her ape suit. Guang kind of nods at this. We need to get an ape suit off Jian, and we need someone to fill it. Dima's already spoken. The synthetic can't go anyway. If there is trouble, what use is the synthetic going to be?
A very good point.
I don't know.
Therefore, the synthetic doesn't need their bodyguard. Though
Correct.
It was a very good point made by Juan in terms of this being your duty as a member of the glorious union of progressive peoples, Boyer. I'm surprised you weren't first with your hand up.
Yeah, maybe 10 years ago.
Right. So, look, we're not getting anywhere here. Sinofia, go talk to your man and see if you can get his suit off him.
Okay.
Dima.
May I accompany you, Zinofia?
By all means. By all means, Wang. It would be useful to get your opinion on this complex mind.
Dima, get ready. You've got your gun, right?
I do. It's not much, but...
Well, just in case.
Sure.
So, I think it's safe to say we spread out along the way. Huang wants to go with Zenofia, and therefore Booya does too, I suppose. As you walk through the factory floor on your way to see Jian, Efim, the machinery crew member I described earlier with the large wooden cross, he's basically standing in as a mechanic after Diego got himself pulped by Jian. And he just kind of dashes over to Xenofia and says, "Boss, are you going to see Jian?"
Yes, I am, Effin, yeah.
He nods. He's kind of a scrawny-looking guy, got sort of stubble on his face, on his head. You know from his files that he's in his late 20s, but he looks a lot younger than that.
I don't believe it.
And he just kind of rifles through his fatigues and holds out kind of a very kind of small amount of rations from what's available here at Chirikov, kind of some ancient jerky, that kind of thing, and just holds it out and says, "Jan sometimes gave me some of his food. I know what he did, but can you give him this?"
Sure.
Efim nods and kind of hands you the jerky, and then picks up his gear and starts working on a huge press again.
I'll let him know it's from you, I'm going to say before he heads off.
He kind of nods and holds up his spanner in acknowledgement. You head through the factory floor, through the offices, and kind of past all the labs, where you can see inside one of them, Dima is kind of like suiting up with that fatigue underlayer and kind of double checking his pistol, essentially. You walk through to what is the old outpost, which is a vast open chamber with the generator tower in the middle of it. It's just strewn with wreckage of various sorts from the different purposes that Chirikov has served over the years. There's even some old kind of like crumpled market stalls from when this used to be a trade outpost. And over in one far corner of this gigantic room, after you move around the generator, is some old kind of factory workings, one of which is a disused blast chamber. Outside it, on a plastic chair, reading something on kind of a data tablet, is Han Chang, who is the Bering colonial marshal, one of many Bering colonial marshals who has arrived to take Jian back to Bering for summary judgment. As you're walking over, he kind of glances up from his data tablet and stands up. He's a tallish, gaunt man with a shaved head and quite kind of very calm but piercing eyes. He tilts his head and says, "Xenofia? Huang?"
There may be need to take Jian's ape suit off him temporarily for some investigation, or we need to talk to him.
Why do you need to talk to him? Why not just take his ape suit?
We need his key.
It's keyed to him.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. I mean, how complex does this conversation need to be?
Hopefully not complex.
Okay. He peers in to the blast chamber. Jian, you can kind of hear people talking outside, but can't hear what they're saying. Does that make sense? You just hear it as kind of the booming of voices outside. Are you? Would it be fair to say you're observing what's happening through the door? Yeah. Okay. Chang steps up to the door and kind of taps on it to get your attention, which he already presumably has, leans in close enough to the incredibly thick plastic guard so that you can just about hear what he's saying through there, and says, "Jian, multiple of us are coming in. We're all armed. Step back against the goddamn wall."
I hesitate for a while before, slowly, at my own pace, walking back to the wall.
He nods, slowly works the mechanisms with a large clank that opens the blast chamber door. He already has like a revolver out as he's doing this with one hand, and he wrenches aside the blast chamber doors and kind of steps back to one side to allow other people through. And as he does so, very clearly has his gun double hand aimed at Jian, and goes, "Go on then." Jian, can you tell us what you look like, please?
I am tall, massive. I'm like muscled, but also just big in general. Like stocky. I'm of Chinese heritage. I'm kind of in battered clothes. I've got like a baseball cap that looks probably older than I am. I'm about 40. I've got a clean shaved head, clean shaved face, small eyes. Just a very big person.
So to correct it, but we can't change it. It's fine. I thought you had a beard, but I could be wrong. Am I wrong with that?
Head and face shaved clean.
I am wrong with that. I think I've put him described as with a beard in the cast list. So you know what? Let's switch it to the cast list version, just because that's what the audience has.
It's that, or he's shaved with a concealed razor that he has. So I hope he was wrong.
Absolutely.
Freaking God.
Well, if it says it in the cast list, let's just have a quick look at the cast list, and let's take this opportunity to post it again in the chat, please. So if you want a big thing, a tangled and bushy dark beard shot with grey is what I described in the cast list. So with full respect to Jian's character sheet, let's keep it as that, so we don't have to change that.
You had a sudden reaction to grow a massive beard in a few days after.
I'm very manly.
You murderer. Anyway, Jan, we need access to your ape suit.
You need access to my ape suit?
That's what I said.
For a second there, I thought you would have come in here because you discovered why I did what I did to Diego.
Jan, there's nothing I can do about this, whatever reason you tell me. You know, I'm completely pointing to the people around me. There's only one option for you now. I've got the kind of ration pack in my hands, maybe kind of like passing it from hand to hand, or kind of like fiddling with it. But the matter is, right now we need access to your ape suit.
Oh. And why should I give you access to my ape suit?
Jan, I didn't kill that guy, and I didn't make you kill that guy. And we've worked together for many, many years. And although you've really landed me in the shit with this.
Sorry to interrupt you. Haven't.
Have we not? Oh, I thought we worked together on the crew for a long time.
No, you're just here for a season. You've
never met
for a season. Any of the people here before.
Strike years changed to months. That's what I meant to say. We've worked together for many months, and we haven't had any problems. Today, I've got a problem. I need access to your ape suit.
You do have a problem. That definitely sounds like a problem.
Fiddling with this ration pack, it doesn't look like this has been tampered with in any way in order to give Jian maybe like secret, like a weapon or a key or a lockpick or something inside it.
The latter could be popular. Well, a lockpick wouldn't help with the blast chamber, but what it looks like, just so we know, like a protein bar, right? Like a little protein bar, but it's made of like heavily compacted old meat.
Cool.
So certainly not a weapon, and you can't think of a thing it could. But if you want to, go ahead and give me an observation roll.
I will do that because I that has come to my character's mind. So I roll 5. I roll 4 in wits and one in observation. So I get to roll 5 die.
My eyes briefly flick to the item and then back.
0 successes. It looks fine to me.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks like a normal bit of food to use. I'd love the year 0 system. 3 rolls so far, no successes.
Well, what I will be trying to do with this ongoing conversation is a manipulation roll on Jan, and I would like to. Can I make that roll to kind of represent generally what's going on in the conversation, or? I
think so. Yeah. We can play this a couple of ways. We can play it as an opposed roll between Jian and Zenofia, or we can just say that Zenofia makes the roll and Jian can kind of interpret how he receives that. Jian may be up to a different game entirely. Jian, do you want to resist this manipulation roll with your own manipulation, which is probably awful?
I don't want to resist. I want to go with the flow.
Sure. Yeah.
Can I push?
you absolutely can push the roll. So, and is an ideal opportunity for us to discuss pushing. So after you've made a roll, if it's not to your satisfaction, if you have no successes or less successes than you'd like, you can push it to re-roll everything that isn't showing a success, essentially. And if you do that, the only bad thing about it, you can only do it once unless you have a talent that changes that, and your stress level goes up by 1.
So this is my stress die. These are my regular die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the stress points you get is immediately added to the roll, as you've rightly pointed out.
I now get 2 successes.
Okay.
And I don't get any panic.
So you have that is very good. So you have succeeded with just 1. If you want, you can take a look at the stunts for manipulation to see what extra we maybe could do in this situation, or we could just say you've got a 2 quality success and Jeanne can react appropriately. It's up to you guys.
I'll have a look at the stunts, but in the meantime, Zinovia really kind of puts her face puts her hand up to her brow and just really you can see the strain on Zinovia, and she just kind of goes, "Jeanne, I need that key, and what is it going to take for you to give it to me?"
You don't need my key. You need my ape suit. I will let you use my ape suit so long as I'm the one in it.
Well, for stunts, you can. It says you can. You don't have to. You either can make them not get something. So normally with a manipulation roll, they get something in order for you to get what you want. But you can say that doesn't happen. You just get what you want, or yes, or that they give you extra information or something like that kind of thing, or that they're impressed by the situation, so that in the future they'll be more likely to help you.
So it sounds that in this situation, we can take the stunt either of 2 ways. If you wanted to take it without demanding a favor in return, and I think the favor is that you're the one in the ape suit, we can have Jeanne maybe argued out of that. Or do you want to take giving you some useful piece of information in return? I am happy for you to take that. I don't want to say what happens if you do that, but I will say it's probably a good thing. So it's up to you which one of those you want to take.
How does Huang react to this development of Jeanne asking to be let out in an ape suit with a gun, presumably?
I never said anything about a gun.
Yeah, Boria is not going to be on board with the gun thing.
Well, yeah, I could picture in my head when Jeanne said that, like Boya immediately making meaningful looks. And anyone looking at Chang will have seen him slowly shaking his head no.
First of all, I look to Zinovia to see if she has any expression or inclination or sign of what she is thinking about this deal.
Like, very much her expression is this kind of, headachy, like, not today, please, kind of expression. I think
lean slightly around Zinovia and say, Jian, my name is Huang. I don't believe we've met yet.
No, I don't believe so.
Why have you asked to go in the ape suit when you don't yet know what we need the ape suit for?
Because it's my fucking ape suit.
It could be dangerous, Jan. It's a dangerous situation you'd be getting yourself into.
Witheringly at Zinovia.
You know what? You haven't asked for this role, Alex, but I feel like it's an appropriate one that you'd appreciate. Do you want to give me an observation role, because this is the first time Boya's got his eyes properly on Jian, and I feel like Boya probably wants to evaluate this guy.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've just been evaluating Pierre, to be honest.
Sure, yeah.
You've got to bear in mind that Jan is very different from Pierre physically.
No hair on the top, more beard.
Yeah.
but otherwise the same.
More the
Otherwise the same.
the facial range, the expression is yeah. Right. Here we go. Sorry, let me just check I'm rolling this right.
I
It is,
haven't forgotten your
observation.
manipulation thing, Justin. We'll circle
I
back
think
to it.
where I'll end on that is not allowing Jan to use
Oh
this.
my God.
No successes again.
Do you want to push it?
Oh, not really, but kinda.
I have the
Pushing-
worst bodyguard.
It's well worth saying in the year zero system, unless you're in an extremely dangerous situation and your stress is ratcheting up, it kind of encourages you to push, because 1 point of stress, remember, can be taken away by just 5 to 10 minutes of rest.
Well, that's true. I forgot it was 5 to 10 minutes. I thought it was
Yeah.
like overnight
Yeah.
rest.
No,
We're going to get lots of that time. 5 to 10 minutes
So
rest
as-
all the time.
As long as you're not immediately fleeing from gunfire or aliens,
Yes.
it can be a decent thing to do on a lot.
Aliens? What? All right.
I don't know why there'd be aliens in there.
There's only bacteria out there. Right. I'm going to push it then. Still no successes.
My word. My
yeah.
word.
Everyone's getting stressed out.
I get no
My word.
stress, no panic, but still, yeah.
No,
So
you
I-
do.
I keep-
Well, no
sorry.
panic. No.
I get no panic, but I keep the stress die in the.
Yeah.
pool.
Did you roll the stress die with that roll?
I did,
Oh,
and
never mind.
it was all just numerical. So no.
I'd have loved you for panic from that. Your first look
Yeah.
at Gian, and you was like,
Oh my god, this guy's terrifying.
yeah.
So
Jan,
hardened 15 years.
You're not going to get to use this suit. It's just too dangerous. You know, they're never going to allow me to do that. Look, here, this is from Effin, and I chuck you the ration pack. That's all I can give you, and that better be enough because I need that suit.
That's all Effin can give me. All right. I guess you're not really interested at all in.
It might look good on you. It might look good on your record when you have this, trial if you've been helpful.
All right.
Chang
Well,
kind of speaks out from the back of the group. Cooperation can look good in some circumstances.
I'm
Yeah.
like, please, Chang. Chang look like, shut up. I need this suit.
If what you want, Gian, is for someone to hear your story, I would very much like to speak with you, perhaps at a point where we are not asking you for an ape suit.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
fine. Take me to the locker.
Okay. Chang kind of shakes his head and goes, fucking all right then. Soldier, you want to help me with this?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Chang is not holstering his weapon and is keeping it pointed very firmly at Jian and kind of waves him out.
I walk slowly out. I want to try to keep as close an eye on everyone's guns as I can.
Sure.
Not in a suspicious way or anything, but just in a...
Just in a, I want to know where all the guns are in
Whether-
case I need to know where an easily accessible gun is. Just
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I take the rations off of Xenophia, sort of snatch.
Sure.
for the
I
sake
believe
of
Xenophia tossed them at you, so you probably
yeah.
grab them off the floor.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, for the sake of clarity, my equipment consists of a pulse rifle, which isn't actually quite like that one. It's slightly different. It's like an AK variant, small brush,
Yeah.
which I'll have slung, a pistol, and like a
I'd
baton.
say, in fact, that it might be quite common for you to actually have your pulse rifle stowed somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Rather than when you're hanging around. 'Cause,
Sure.
so let me know when you do get it.
Sure. I'll
In case that's handy.
Shall we say, for convenience, then, that it's like in a secure locker in my quarters
Yeah.
or something?
That
And then
seems like a good idea.
I'll have
Yeah.
my service pistol holstered and my baton around my belt. Or whatever.
Sure. Are you unslinging your pistol now, though? Because
I'm
Chang
not going
seems want
to.
you
I'll have
Okay.
my hand on my baton.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
this
Yeah,
guy is
yeah.
big, but he is unarmed, and I don't want to escalate. So
Yeah.
Let me know if any of these get within arm's reach.
Sure. Chang definitely ain't. He knows what he's doing, and he's staying a full kind of 6 feet away from you. And I'm assuming Boyer is doing the same.
Oh, he's muted. But yes, I assume.
Sorry, yes, I was distracted by the chat.
Sure. The chat going, attack! Chang and Boyer escort Jian out. And I'm assuming the other two people there, Huang and Zenofia, are going to. Well, where are you going to go while this escort is happening?
Well, I mean, I suppose who's the suit going to be for when it gets? Who's going to collect it when it gets keyed in? Is that Zenofia's job?
I mean, she could pick it up. It can just be, one person can carry it.
I think I'll be following behind.
It's going to Dima. Okay. Huang, are you just going to follow with them then, I assume?
Yes.
Sure. So Jean, can I? I'm assuming if no one gets close enough for you to make a grab for a weapon, you're not. Are you just going to go to the locker?
I'm just going to go to the locker. I'm going to, take my ration. I'm going to aggressively eat it very fast.
Sure.
And swallow the pig.
Yeah. And then everyone proceeds up. You'll go through up to kind of into habitation where everything's stowed. Jian has a locker. I'm taking it you're opening that locker with the ape suit?
Yeah. Going towards it, unlocking, and, I'll say, it's funny. Diego.
Chang is cocking his revolver right now.
It really doesn't sound like a name from round here, does it? Makes you think. And then I'll reach down and take out the ape suit.
Sure. Handing that to Zenofia without incident?
Without incident.
Okay, for now.
Cheers, Jan. I'll put in a good word for you, I swear.
Okay. Yeah. It's safe to say that unless, and again, you're being escorted back by, Chang and Boria, they're not going to get near you. So are we safe to say that Jean is secured in the blast chamber again?
Yes.
So I've got a presumption of guilt from the GM going on here. It's like just jumping in the gate for you to go.
So, Dima, I would imagine you're prepared by now and waiting perhaps at the hangar doors.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe Zenofia and Huang, will you have gone to escort Jian back, or are you leaving Boyer and going to the hangar doors with Zenofia?
I would quite like to follow Jian back in the hopes that I could take a moment to speak to him before the door is locked.
Absolutely. And you know what? Let's do that now. So set the scene again. Jian is maybe stood in the blast chamber again. Chang, Boyer, and Huang are outside it. Huang, take it away.
I said that I would be interested in hearing your point of view on the events. Would you be willing to speak to me about this now?
Don't see why not. No one else has taken any interest in my side of the story. Well, I suppose if you talk to Ephim, he will tell you that I am a quiet man who keeps to himself. I don't want any trouble. I don't cause any trouble. I am extremely calm, as you can see here. Now, Diego, on the other hand, Diego was a hot-tempered fellow, always talking, always boasting, always aggravated. I did not let any of that bother me. I just continued with my work. But sometimes there are certain things that you shouldn't boast about. One of the things that Diego was boasting about on that particular evening had something to do with Azul. It had been something to do with the fact that he'd received payment. Now, I don't know what for, but from some people from our good ceasefire buddies over there. And I don't know exactly why, but I thought it was my duty to put him in his place. Now, I think, as any good citizen of our great metropolis, I like to think that anyone would have done what I did in my position if they knew what I knew. If they knew what I did, and they, cared about the ongoing success of our operation. I mean, I'm assuming you need the ape suit to go and investigate something, right?
Correct.
Well, let's hope it has nothing to do with whatever Diego was up to.
Do you have reason to believe that Diego may have been working with anyone else within the facility?
I mean, everyone seems so quick to jump to his defense and presume my guilt without hearing any of my side of the story. I've got to assume he has some friends. I have no idea who they are, but, probably might want to see the security of the various keys around here.
Chang says, with all due respect, Agent, are we done?
For now, I think so.
He immediately slams the door shut on Jan and kind of spins the wheel to lock it up. He holsters his revolver, turns to you and kind of leans in quite close, not aggressively, just to make absolutely sure Jan can't hear him, and say, Agent, Gian is full of shit. You know that, right? You ask any marshal from my district of Bering about Shang Zhan. He's left a trail of bodies behind him, but never the right ones to pin anything on him. People piss him off, he kills them. That's what he does.
I find it concerning that a man with such an interesting psych profile was sent here.
Everyone here has an interesting psych profile, Agent. That's why they're in Chirikov. Right. Don't let me keep you. He settles back on his plastic chair, gets his data tablet out, starts scrolling.
I'm making a huge note in my report saying personnel issues.
Size 72 font.
When one of your personnel is now permanently in cold storage, I think that absolutely no one could argue with that. Let's move over to the hangar bay where Zenofia has just arrived with Xian's ape suit, which Dima can now start kind of clambering into. Yeva and Guang are already there in their ape suits. They're environmental survival suits with a degree of protection to them, right? They look a little bit like more technologically adapt, environmental hazard suits, right? You get in movies with the full yellow and the screen, but they're like a cross between that and a spacesuit, essentially, giving you a lot more motion and allowing a lot more protection. And Yeva and Guang are just kind of patiently waiting for Dima to suit up.
I'm guessing this is this won't be very helpful if you haven't played any Isolation, but a bit like those suits that the androids, the Seegson androids wear in that. Have you not played it?
I have not played it, so quite possibly.
Okay.
Quite possibly. So you know what, Dima, and this is just for my own amusement, why don't we make a survival roll for you and you putting on this ape suit? It's probably the first time you've ever put one on.
Sure.
He's not trained in the Fremen ways.
So that's wits of 5, survival of 1, no stress. Oops.
Good.
Not yet. Wait till you try and get the nose plugs in.
Oh, and 1 success.
Okay, so you've secured your water tube. You are...
Just the straps.
Sorry, enough Dune references, but we'll go down a rabbit hole, and down the rabbit hole will be a tent.
Big worm.
Under the... Anyway, so, you successfully put on your ape suit. Yeva nods and Guang says, 1 kilometer out now. They should almost be emerging from from the canopy. So we better get moving.
Dima,
Yes.
I kind of walk over and just keep yourself safe. Don't fuck this up.
You know me. I'm always careful.
Yeah. Look, this inspection is going to be so much of a complete ball ache anyway. You know, I don't want to do this on my own or down to goddamn Yava only.
Sure.
Anyway, just, you know, don't get shot or anything.
I will endeavour not to. See you soon.
Absolutely. Okay. As the three of them start walking away over the landscape around Chirikov, which is kind of very rough, oddly coloured terrain with patches of kind of toxic fluid around, and in the distance a kind of haze where the forests of the wilderness start. Guang turns back over her shoulder and calls back at Zenofia. Range on standard radio comms on these things is about 500 meters, so you're going to lose contact with us before we get to them. Just so you know.
It's just a point of order. Who has radios on them?
The vehicle.
Oh, just the vehicle. Okay.
Just the vehicle, yeah. But she's certainly suggesting that Zenofia might want to man that radio.
Sure.
But we'll see. So while we're doing that, let's, while we're doing this journey out there, let's strip. I say let's, but I'm the one doing it. So we're going to strip everyone off but Steve, because Steve is the only one there. So there we go. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
So you trudge over the landscape of Gehenna. Kind of nothing unusual happening. I mean, everything is unusual on Gehenna, but you're just kind of trudging along alongside the other two. Yeva and Guang both have their sidearms out. Are you doing the same?
Yes, I think so.
There's like a holster mount on the surface of the ape suit. As you walk, you see kind of the haze of Gehenna's wilderness forest ahead of you, kind of heat rising ahead of you and mixing in with a toxic layer of smog-like material over the top of it. The pink sky of Gehenna at morning has given way to its usual kind of odd blend of kind of orangey brown. And as you stride forward, you see ahead of you at the tree line two kind of dark shapes, dark from the distance, not because of any kind of coloration of theirs, emerge from that tree line. And Yeva kind of comes to a halt and kind of turns to both of you. Every turn in an ape suit is kind of, just the full top half, because it's more protection than maneuverability. And she just turns around to both of you, and you can see just kind of the top half of her face through it. And she says, "All right. Does anyone want to make a choice as to how we approach this?"
I would. Can I see? Can I see any markings on? They're just dark shapes at the moment.
You can literally just see that the haze obscures everything, but the fact that two individuals who certainly look humanoid have emerged from the tree line.
Then I suggest we'll need to get closer, but if there is a safer way of doing so, if we can look out for cover or anything around us and just sort of slowly, calmly approach. No sudden movements.
Why don't you give me a survival roll then? And you know what? Because you've got the other two helping you and looking out, and they both certainly have that. Why don't you add 2 dice to it for me?
Lovely. Okay. So that's 8 dice in total. And 1 success.
Okay. You can see a little way over to your left. There's sort of a crater in the earth, which is unusually not full of horrible fluid as it usually is on Gehenna, and perhaps settling in there kind of just behind the ridge line. Maybe if they open fire, you can drop. And
that sounds good.
That might help. Okay.
So, yeah, I'll indicate the position, and I guess we move over there.
Guang kind of nods and indicates it and says, "Yeah, I agree." You can see her eyes through the faceplate, for once not in her pilot shades. And the three of you kind of trudge heavily over to the top of that ridge and stand there kind of like guns guns out. Guang kind of looks a bit pensive for a second and then tongues a control in her helmet and says, Xenophia, can you read? Shakes her head. A few minutes pass. The black shapes slowly resolve themselves through the slight mist and the heat rising off the ground. They are 2 individuals, and they are wearing functional equivalents of these ape suits. But rather than in the basic colors that you have yours in, they are notably... they're in essentially camo ape suits.
Okay. Are there any insignias? Anything that...
Without, telegraphing some role-playing, you don't need the insignias to know who these people are.
Okay.
But for the purposes of answering your question, no, they are not wearing insignias. Yeva kind of looks over at you two and says, that's military gear. Bearing military gear. Can you... you know what? Let's... she's kind of looking very hard at both of you. And reactions might be apparent from that, right? So why don't you give me a manipulation roll? And I'll give her a chance to observe you. And I have her sheet because I've had to make sheets for everyone because they might end up being player characters. And I will just take an average of hers rather than do lots of rolls. So I will just say that it's at a certain level. You give me the roll and tell me what you get.
Nothing.
Okay. Oh no, I can't take an average because I'm used to taking averages where half is a success, right? So, and I can't really do that. So I will roll hers and see what she gets. I guess I could take an average, but it's complex for my poor brain to do. Okay, she gets 1 success. She's glancing across at the 2 of you, and then her eyes linger on you for a second, and Yeva says, Dima, you know who they are, don't you? Guang turns to you really fast.
We might have met. I wasn't expecting to see them again.
Do we need these? She gestures with her gun.
No, I don't think we do. Let me go out and I'll have a word.
You want to go out on your own?
I think it'll be okay.
Fucking asshole. Go.
All right, so I'll...
One's like a bit cowed by what's happening. Obviously, Yeva is kind of nominally her superior here.
I'll put my pistol away and slowly come out of cover. Hands not up, but sort of showing
Sure. You walk out, and after striding forward about 50 paces or so, you come within about 20 paces of them. They are visibly armed, but they haven't raised them. One of them is armed with a kind of standard SOF pulse rifle of the same kind of type that Boyer has, and the other one is holding a large pump action shotgun. The one holding the shotgun steps forward a bit, and you see through the faceplate that he's a kind of very grizzled looking individual with a kind of dark beard and several scars over his face. And he leans in slightly, and as he does so, you can see that his nose is kind of crushed over one side of his face in a way it wasn't a couple of weeks ago the first time you met him. He leans in and says, Lebedev. All right. he looks back at the other individual who you also recognize from your meeting with this small group of SOF Special Forces individuals. He's kind of a handsome man with a kind of tightly cropped hair of kind of Vietnamese extraction. And he's kind of a little wide-eyed and kind of panting deeply, but has no kind of visual damage. The one in front who you briefly interacted with, but you have kind of no idea of his name, says, "Right, we're coming to Chirikov. There's been issues. Are we going to have any trouble back there?"
Well, you've caused some surprise. I don't think so. I think there's going to be some interesting conversations, but we should be okay.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting conversations.
I take it things didn't work out so well.
Clearly fucking not. You can call me Kozlov. This is Cam. Why don't you introduce us to your fellows over there, and then we'll all go back to Chirikov, real calm and quiet, and we'll see what we can do from there.
Sure. So I walk back with them to Yever and Guang, and yes, I'll introduce them.
Kozlov nods and says, "Right, let me make this clear. We're not going to have any trouble. And this is something I decide. Yes?" Yever and Guang kind of glance at each other. Yever shrugs and says, "Why would there be trouble, comrade?" There's a kind of brief moment of silence. Kozlov nods and says, "All right, back we go." And kind of gestures with the shotgun in a not entirely safe kind of way.
Okay.
You turn around and start trudging back towards Chirikov. Are you going to do anything unusual in this situation? I'm guessing not, but
I might keep my eyes on them and try and determine why. I don't know. I don't know why they're behaving the way they are. Obviously, they've been in some sort of conflict.
Sure.
How many of them were there originally?
6.
Okay.
Do you want to make any kind of observation roll and see if what you can pick up from their equipment and stuff like that? Go ahead with that. That's absolutely
It'll be 8 dice.
He's the observation man.
Not this time. No.
Despite that, do you want to push it?
Go on. Why not? This is a bit of a tense situation.
Where's the harm?
1 success and no panic rolls.
Okay. Well, it's more the differences you note. The first time you saw them, Kozlov definitely had a pulse rifle, so that's gone. And you notice that the air gauge on the side of their ape suits is pretty low. Like, it's not an air gauge, actually. It'll be like a filtration gauge. Like, their filters are starting to pack up.
Sure.
As it would be if they have come here on foot from quite a distance away. So, yes. As you trudge forward, you go about half the distance back, and there is, and I'm going to add Justin in again here, there is a kind of like a crackling noise over the communications as kind of atmospheric interference diminishes in a very familiar way on Gehenna. And you hear Xenofia's voice saying,
"I'm still here, Dima. Just let us know when you've got any news."
We're back in range. I can hear you now.
Good.
We have some guests.
Friendlies?
Yes. There might be a little more paperwork though. Sorry to say.
That's okay. If it keeps us busy, then that's all good. Who the hell is it though?
I'll let them explain. It's probably simpler.
Okay.
Okay. 500 meters later, and the 5 ape-suited individuals emerge back into the hangar. I'm going to bring out... is it safe to say... they can't reply unless I bring them on. But is it safe to say that Huang and Boya are probably waiting in the hangar to see what happens?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I assume not massively worried, because we'll have heard that radio conversation.
Sure. Justin, what were you going to say?
Can anyone who's gained stress so far have had enough time to lose said stress?
No, because I'd say no, because it counts as resting. And while technically you haven't been doing anything, I'd say it's not a non-stressful situation.
That's true.
Waiting to see if Chirikov is about to be attacked or whatever.
Reasonable.
So these 5 shapes emerge. The hangar bay doors kind of slide open and crash together. And immediately kind of like Yeva and Guang start taking off their ape suits. Kozlov kind of waits for a moment and kind of looks at everyone who stood there, and his eyes linger especially on Boya, and then he nods and takes his off. He's, as I described, kind of shortish hair, dark beard, scars, cam, again, as I described. I don't need to describe them again. And they kind of glance at each other, and then Kozlov turns around and says, okay, let's keep this real simple. He gestures at the Loshad with his pulse rifle and says, who can fly that? Guang puts her hand up. She's already kind of re-put on her pilot shades. Kozlov nods and says, right. Well, I need all the ape suits and guns you've got, and I need them in there ready to go in 10 minutes. Because we've got to pick up some gear.
Turn to look at Sylvia.
Who would is this my jurisdiction to say, is it, or who's in charge?
I mean, Dima,
who's in charge?
you, Dima, and Yeva are in charge at Chirikov. There is no chain of command between the 3 of you.
And Chirikov isn't technically like a military installation.
Oh God, no,
or is it?
no. The only people here who are officially military are Guang and Yeva. And Yeva's military status, well, let's say she didn't get put here for good behavior.
Yeah. Well, I think I might try and well, look, who the hell are you? Before we can do any of this, what the hell is going on? You need to tell us what's happening here. I kind of want to make a command. If there's a role to do, I'd rather make a command role to impress that this is a serious situation.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we have opposed command roles between you and him? I think that's that. As to where everyone else might be leaning, I think that's reasonable, don't you?
Yeah. I still have my stress die, so that's a commanding face, by the way, just so you know, John.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. 2 successes.
2 successes. Okay, well, he just got 1 success. So I'd say no one else is jumping to it or anything, and everyone just kind of halts. Kozlov kind of bites his lip and says, this is not a request. I left men out there. I left gear out there. That gear is very important to some people back in Bering. Do we understand ourselves? He's tapping, like his ape suit is partly off now, like folded around his legs, and he's tapping at like an SOF Special Forces badge on his, the lapel of his fatigues underneath.
Sure. And you guys, I kind of maybe tell the other, get to what he's asking. But you have to share with us here. Who are you? I'm Zinovia. Who are you?
I'm Kozlov. This is Cam. Very pleased to make your acquaintance.
Thanks.
Ape suits and guns. Now.
If I'm the commanding mood, I might issue a command for others to get to it. Like, I'm not wearing those ape suits, for example.
Sure, yeah.
Where are they
he's
going,
saying
Kozlov?
this, like, Cam is kind of like slumped against the front of the air vehicle, and he's visibly near collapse. Yeva kind of steps over to him. Kozlov looks sharply at her, and Yeva just gives him a disparaging glance and immediately gets out her medical kit and kind of tilts Cam's head back and kind of lifts up one eye and starts examining him. She says, "This man isn't going." Kozlov shrugs and looks around. His eyes land on Borya and he says, "He's trained."
Borya gets Yeva out of her. Borya, get Yeva out of her ape suit while we're sorting this out. Where are you going, Kozlov?
We're going to a location.
Sure.
It's 20 kilometers away. I will tell your pilot as we go where it is.
And then you coming back?
Yes.
Then take what you need.
I think Borya at this point is going to shoot a sort of questioning look at Hoang to sort of like, are you going to be okay here if I go? Sort of, I think I'm not really, I think Borya's not really sure how to respond to this because this isn't really a take no for an answer situation. So
I will give Borya a slight nod.
Okay.
I'll
start helping with the ape suit then.
Yeah. So Cam strips out the other Marine who's arrived, strips out of his ape suit, and he's aware he's just exhausted, and he hands you his pulse rifle and says, "You know how to use this, yes?"
Sure do.
All right. And he kind of gets out of his ape suit and he takes it off. And even as Yeva is examining him, he's kind of taking you through the idiosyncrasies of his ape suit, like going, "Oh, the air gauge is a little off," and like stuff like this. And you mentally take that in. Kozlov nods, gestures to Dima and says, "He'll do in that one. You know how to use that gun, Lebedev?"
Yes, but I wouldn't say I'm particularly well trained. If this is combat,
he shrugs. He's already stopped listening to you.
Whatever he wants, I'm happy to comply as long as there's a mutual respect going on.
Okay, so within about 5 minutes, what we have is Guang is heating up the engines for the air transport, and everyone is in their ape suits. So just to reiterate, the people who are going out there are. Actually, there's room for one more because Guang will be in the vehicle, right? Doesn't need an ape suit. So, the people in the ape suit so far, we've got Kozlov, the Marine who's arrived, clearly the leader. We've got Borya, who's been press ganged into it, essentially. We've got Dima, who was already in Xi'an's. And we've got Yeva. But Guang has a spare ape suit. Kozlov has gestured towards it and said, "Who else? Someone else who can use a gun and use that." He looks at Xenofia, clearly thinking you're in charge.
Is there anyone that comes to mind to nominate to go? I don't really want to leave the machinist crew, but I would go if needs be.
The Marshal. He definitely knows how to use a gun.
Then I would nominate them.
Sure.
I've got a machinery crew to watch after.
Sure. Let's not kind of, he'll certainly come to the hangar if you tell him to run and get him. And he kind of comes back, Xi'an's in the blast chamber. He can't get out. I say that seeing Pierre's cam at the bottom with him like, and Chang arrives kind of taking in the two Marines and kind of obviously looking pretty puzzled. What's this?
it's an emergency situation. Things have deteriorated. They're from Special, and we need another person to go with them in that ape suit. Someone who's trained for a combat situation.
Chan
It's
kind of
necessary.
looks over at Kozlov, who's still kind of with his ape suit, the upper half of it down around his legs, takes in that logo on his fatigues and says, "Shit. You have someone watch Jan all the time, okay?"
Sure.
All right. He steps forward, takes the ape suit, starts to strap it on, checking his revolver, stowing it. And the five of them, I think six counting Guang, I think. The group boards up on the air vehicle, which I keep calling an air vehicle, even though I did give it the name Lawshud, the Lawshud air vehicle. And the engines on it slowly rattle themselves up to full blast, and the thing kind of slowly climbs off the ground and arcs off into the air after it's emerged from Chirikov. If you want a visual analogy, it looks an awful lot like a more primitive version of the dropship from Aliens, right? So they're flying off. Zenofia, who are you going to set to watch over Jian?
Me? I mean, probably me. I really hate to be parted from Huang, especially, but yeah, me.
Okay.
And if I'm not already carrying my sidearm, I will then get it from my room.
Sure, absolutely. So there, off you go.
Can I
Right.
clarify something?
Yes, absolutely.
So was I handed a rifle? But...
You were handed Cam's pulse rifle.
Yeah,
He seemed
okay.
perfectly willing to give you his pulse rifle.
Just wanted to make sure that was, yeah.
It does occur to you that a member of the SOF, especially the Special Forces, giving you his pulse rifle...
It's no small thing, yeah.
It definitely is no small thing. He clearly thinks you'll need it.
Yeah. Because I think at this point I want to... sorry, the lead Marine's name. How do you pronounce it again?
Koslov.
Koslov. I think I want. I think Boyer will shoot a sort of. I guess you'd say like a penetrating look at Koslov and be like, "So ceasefire, huh?"
He shrugs and says, "I don't question orders."
Okay. Boyer just nods.
That's what Boyer kicked out years ago.
Setting this, by the way, on the ship is now, the drop ship is now arcing over the wilderness of Gehenna, and below you, all you can see is a vast horizon to horizon spread of like the canopy of the horrific environment of Gehenna beneath you. You occasionally pass through visible clouds of toxic gas and smog, and while Guang is kind of, she's flying, but she's also constantly keeping an eye on external atmospheric sensors to check that there's no leak in the Lawshud dropship itself, because that would be rather catastrophic. Because she ain't in an ape suit. So, aboard this ship, you're kind of passing over this landscape, and after about half an hour has passed, so it's a fair distance from Chirikov. Kozlov leans into Guang and says, "Holding pattern." Guang kind of shrugs past and asking questions now, glances over at the sensors and says, "So, are we expecting some kind of resistance?" Kozlov looks over. "Why?" Guang kind of taps at the sensors again and says, "Because we've got quite a lot of motion down there. And also, I have to say, your ape suits are tuned to a general frequency here. We've got 2 life signs. And I'm assuming those are your men." She looks over her shoulder. Kozlov kind of looks really puzzled by this and says, that doesn't... Right. Put us down. He looks at over at Boyer, clearly considering you to be, the most useful member of the team he's with, and says, as soon as our boots are on the floor, it could go loud. Get ready.
Okay. I check over the rifle and the magazine.
He looks around at everyone and says, anything that isn't wearing one of these ape suits, take it out. Zero hesitation, right? Okay. The Lushud circles slowly down to the ground, puts itself down in a... it's not a clearing. There are no clearings here, but it crushes lots of vegetation as it comes to the ground. The doors open, and the five of you step out cautiously forward into the wilderness of Gehenna. Vegetation around you, complete canopy overhead, odd sounds from the insect life and the planet itself echoing around you. John, we've got just a little atmospheric picture called Forest Scouting. Do you want to flash that up?
Yeah.
And as you flash that up, we're running a little over time, but not too much. But that's the end of Act 1 for us. As I said at the beginning, this is a cinematic play of the Alien RPG, and that uses a 3-act system, right? So there's various things to talk about when we get back. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 10-minute break. So hopefully we'll see you again in 10 minutes. Hang on, but take the time to get some food, get a drink, get a bio, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. If you want to strip our cams off and put our holding screen up, please do.